Today we're going to be talking about the Disney made-for-TV movie Princess of Thieves. So this year is actually the 20th anniversary of this movie. I think it came out in March of 2001. It was one of Keira Knightley's earlier films, probably one of the first at least that she had a very main character role in. I know she was in Star Wars back when she was 12. I think in Princess of Thieves she was about 15 or 16. So I'm going to be talking about things I didn't really like about this movie, or I think could have been done better or in a different way, and why I liked the movie anyways. Obviously, this is just my opinion on the movie, and other people could totally like things that I didn't really like about the movie. Let's talk about the characters. First of all, Gwen. I like Gwen. I think Keira Knightley did a good job with the character. I don't think she played a very convincing boy. I think that Keira Knightley's version of a boy in Pirates of the Caribbean 2 was much more convincing. First of all, she sort of disguised her voice to make it sound a little bit rougher, and her boy clothes were just more convincing. I think wearing a hat really helped with that too. But I did like Gwen's boy outfit better than any of the girl outfits she wore in the movie. Two of the best characters in this movie were Prince John and the Sheriff of Nottingham. They were both very well done. I don't know who acted. Keira Knightley is really the only actor I know of from this movie, so she's the only one I'm going to be mentioning by name, probably besides the Prince guy who's played by a guy named Stephen Moyer or something. I don't know if that's how you say it. Apparently he's famous or something, but I didn't really like him. I guess it's just a sucky character. But Prince John and the Sheriff of Nottingham are both really good. I liked Will Scarlet okay. It just seemed a little weird to me to have Will Scarlet and not have Little John. Obviously the story is about Gwen, not Robin Hood, so I can see why they didn't have Little John in the movie, but I wish that they had done something, said maybe what he decided to do after Robin Hood went off on the Crusades, or maybe say if he's dead, then say he's dead. Just give us a little bit of closure on Little John, because he's a big character. We want to know what happened to him. Robin Hood was okay. I think on one site, I think it was boldoutloud.com. It's this Robin Hood site with tons of information about Robin Hood legends. They did a review on Princess of Thieves, and it seems like they said Robin Hood didn't really act like Robin Hood because Gwen was the Robin Hood of this movie, which is true. But I'd like to defend Robin Hood just a little bit, even though I don't really like him. First of all, we don't have a particular Robin Hood movie to base this Robin Hood on. He's older, his wife died, and that could be something that sort of changed how he was, because he loved her or whatever. Oh yeah, Maid Marian's dead, I forgot to say that earlier. Spoiler. But she narrates the movie, which is kind of weird. I don't mind narration at the beginning and end of the movie that she does, but it seems weird to have a dead person narrating a movie, like they're dead. And the third thing in defense of Robin Hood is he's been on crusades, at war for years, and war changes people, so that's a little bit of leeway, but still, he should have been a better dad. He should have visited her more often than 6 times in her life. Even if for whatever reason he wasn't able to visit more than 6 times in her life, he should have been a little bit more excited to see her. In the movie he's like, oh, hi, and then he's just talking to all the other guys who he knows, his merry men, or the monks or whatever. And so that's kind of rude. Okay, and there's one thing I want to talk about at the beginning of the movie that I like, but I wish it had been executed a little bit differently. So at the beginning, you have this sort of montage of Gwen growing up, which is really cool. Now that Gwen's grown up, I don't know how old she is. I don't know, Keira Knightley was 16. I don't know if Gwen's supposed to be 18 or whatever. She's in her late teens. But anyways, Robin Hood visits. Apparently it's the 6th time he's visited her since he left on the Crusades with King Richard. I wish that the montage at the beginning was the same numbers of changes. Each time she changed, I wish that was how he would have seen her when he visited, but I looked at it and it wasn't like that, and so that would have been a really cool detail if they had done that, but they didn't. The reason Robin Hood is coming back in the first place is to escort Prince Philip, King Richard's son, to England to make sure he isn't killed by Prince John, because Prince John wants to be king. And Gwen wants to go with him to bring the prince to wherever it is that they're going. And Robin Hood thinks she wants to go just to meet the prince. And that shows that Robin Hood knows nothing about princes. Now, I'm talking about princes in movies, not real princes. If you're a real prince and you have nothing better to do than watch this video, I'm sorry. Work on getting better representation in movies, okay? Now, some princes are just evil, like Prince Hans in Frozen. And other princes exist for no other purpose but to marry the princess, like Cinderella Prince. And then there's the third type of prince. The I don't want to be Prince. Prince Philip falls into the category of
I don't want to be king. I want to be a whiny brat who does whatever I want instead of thinking of anyone else.
just like in Ella Enchanted, just like in Ever After. You have your lazy prince who doesn't want to be king. He just wants to be a normal person and follow his dreams, even though he doesn't really know what he wants to do. He just doesn't want to be prince. Oh, and this type of prince, they have to have a female character whip him into shape before the end. And that's what Gwen does. Makes him less of a loser. She's sure that he would have brought her if she was a boy, and so she's going to prove that she's just as good as a boy by running away, sneaking out, dressing like a boy. And her best friend, Froderick, I forgot to mention him. Froderick is a pretty good character. She also had Froderick follow her, even though I think she told him not to. However, her sneaking after Robin Hood is what ultimately landed Robin Hood and Will Scarlet in jail. Of course, she didn't mean for it to be that way, but still. I feel like one of the main things about this movie is that it's sort of like a tough girl power sort of thing going on, but it's not really as dramatic and radical as I think maybe we're supposed to see it as. So first of all, Gwen was raised in a monastery, all by, men, I guess, at least mostly by just guys. She does the same things as them, she was raised by them, so really her wanting to be treated the same as a boy isn't really that odd. If she had been raised by nuns her whole life, her wanting to be like a boy would be very odd, but as she was raised with boys, by boys, it really doesn't make her whole acting like a boy thing seem very odd because that's how she was raised. Now there's one thing I'd like to talk about. In one part, she is in a city in her boy disguise or whatever. Anyway, when she's in this town, she notices someone, I think they're like accusing a child of stealing or something. I don't know if the kid was stealing or not. Anyway, she says,
"Wish for a thief, you'll get one."
And I mean, that is true somewhat. Sometimes people do turn out bad because they were treated like they'd turn out bad or they were treated bad themselves. But at the same time, you are responsible for what you do, even if someone expects you to do something bad or people treat you badly. You have the responsibility to rise above that. It's not an excuse. A little bit after this, Gwen finds herself in trouble and Robin Hood finds her and saves her. And then after he rescues her, he's like sort of lecturing her. She says something like, "I know if you hadn't saved me, I'd be dead or worse."
Had you not come, I'd be dead or worse. Is that what you want to hear?
This isn't particularly a problem with this movie. It's just this phrase is interesting to me. Dead or worse. So if you're dead, there are two options. You either go to heaven or hell. So if you go to heaven, heaven is like perfect. So since Earth is imperfect and your life was on Earth, pretty much everything in your life would be worse than death because you are in heaven and heaven is perfect. On the other hand, if you die and go to hell, hell is like the worst place ever, and so pretty much nothing could be worse than that. And so I find the phrase slightly problematic as far as that goes. The main theme of Gwen's characters are proving that she can do the same things as a boy could do. And I feel like there's not a lot behind her character beyond that. So anyways, later on in the movie, Gwen steals, or tries to steal, the prince's horse he has. And he stops her, and then he figures out that she's a girl, and he's just going to let her have the horse. And she doesn't want to take it then, if he's just giving it to her because she's a girl. She'd rather have stolen it. So I thought that was an interesting thing there, because not all characters are like that. For example, I was thinking before, Scarlett O'Hara from Gone with the Wind. I can just imagine Scarlett O'Hara just taking it as quickly as she could before he changed his mind. I think it's interesting to think about how particular characters react differently or how they would react in similar situations. Next problem with this movie, the kissing part. First of all, it's kind of weird that Keira Knightley is like 16 and the guy playing the prince is like older, like twice her age or whatever. Johnny Depp thought it was weird when he had to kiss her in like Pirates 2 because she's like twice her age. But another problem I have with it is something that so many movies do. Live action movies do it, cartoons do it. They have this weird close-up angle of people kissing. Why? When in your life are you ever going to be so close that two people kissing is actually blocking your entire view? Like, just two people's heads blocking your view? How close do you have to be? Are you the size of a hamster that's like 6 inches away from their face? 8 inches away from their face, 12 inches away from their face, I don't know. Hamsters can't even see that well. It just blurred for a hamster. It's ridiculous. The camera guy isn't that close. And in the next part, we're just going to appreciate Froderick a little bit. I've only mentioned him a couple times, but he's like Gwen's best friend, and he's really a good character. One thing that's good about Froderick is he didn't trust the prince. So the prince told Gwen that the prince was dead and that he was the prince's valet, Conrad. Conrad was a cooler person than the prince, by the way. But anyways, Froderick is suspicious of the prince. For good reason, because he's a liar. He's just bad. He's bad. After that, the prince decides to announce that the prince isn't dead and that he has a ring to prove it. And you know what? That proves nothing. If the prince had died, Conrad could have taken the ring from him and then run away and claimed that he was prince. The ring doesn't really prove anything. How would anyone in the movie know that he's not lying now? Another part of this movie I really like is that there's this fight scene in the woods at some point, and the sheriff is like aimed his bow at the prince. And he's like gonna shoot, and Gwen yells like no or something like that. And the prince just stands there for enough time for Froderick to just run and jump in front of him and get shot instead.
Why do you back up, you cowards? Oh, man!
I'm thinking like, oh, Froderick jumped in front and sacrificed himself for the good of the country because Prince Philip will be a much better king than Prince John. And then Gwen comes up to him and Froderick's like, I knew you liked him.
I know how much you like him.
At first I thought maybe Froderick died, but he doesn't die. He ends up going to school, and I was really glad he didn't die. Now, this movie is very cliche, especially how the prince runs very slowly and still somehow gets there before Prince John is crowned king. He claims he's the prince and whatever, and then all the people just believe him, or maybe they just think that no one could possibly be that much worse than Prince John. But either way, the people don't defend Prince John, and Philip is the guy who becomes the next king. There is one thing that wasn't cliche, and that's the very end. And I liked it because I wasn't expecting it. So throughout the movie, we have this weird little love triangle thing going on where Froderick likes Gwen and Gwen likes the prince likes Gwen, and you know, those almost always end up with the girl ending up with one of the people. That's just how it works. And in the end, Gwen actually ends up with neither one. I really liked how at the end, the prince is the prince, and Froderick goes to school, wherever he goes to school to be a monk or priest or whatever, and Gwen just gets to go work with Robin Hood, and that's really a happy ending. I was fully expecting her to end up with either Froderick or the prince. I liked that they had an ending where the girl didn't get married. So anyways, that's what I have to say about the movie Princess of Thieves. Thanks for watching. If you want, you can like and subscribe.